And we're lit up. Shirt that you've never seen before.
Yes.
Look at that. See that?
Yeah, I haven't seen
I
this
mean, I
photo.
have a whole side of my closet full of shirts you have never seen before.
We have to get through them. How many more do we
Oh,
have?
I'll never live long enough. I swear to God. No, I won't.
I swear to God, we have to get all of them, Schiavo. I am not going to be happy if we don't
I'm
have
telling
all
you,
of them.
no, listen, Linda, between my dogs and my wife, all three females are killing me. They're killing me. I mean, I'm this slave. I feed them.
You
I
know what we
take
should
two dogs
do
out.
is
What?
we should try to get through all of them and do a daily chat.
Yeah. Oh God. Hey, look, I have, when I have time, especially now in wintertime, I have a lot of time on my hands. What I do now is what I've been doing. I'm studying a language. I'm studying Spanish again.
Hmm.
I'm also reading a book called Love and Will for my next book discussion, which is in December.
Hmm.
And then, of course, I watch a series, a bunch of movies. And now we can get into what you wanted to talk about, which was the Netflix show Sex Education.
Yes.
So first off,
Hmm.
I put you onto that.
Oh my
What?
God. And I loved it. And I binged watched the entire like seasons. How many seasons were there? Like,
Four. There's four seasons.
yeah,
Four
four
seasons.
seasons. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what did you think of it? I want to hear what you have to say first.
I thought it was amazing. I loved how everything was filmed, how they talked about things, how like they just threw like all of the, sex or the awkwardness of it and the
Right.
controversial conversations. And they kind of tapped into like the psyche of, teenage angst and all of it. So I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was great. And I thought it was very informative, lots of education with there. And I feel like everybody should watch it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. And you name a sexual mode, they were all there.
Yeah.
You know, the homosexuals, the bisexuals, the transsexuals. It was just. I mean, it was. I also love the fact that they talked about how so many of the young people were sexually confused, like they
Yeah.
weren't sure if they were in fact homosexual or heterosexual or.
Hmm.
And then of course you had the people. I mean, the different colors. I mean, you name a color, you name an ethnicity, it was there. Okay.
Yep.
But I mean, now the key is for people who haven't watched it. You should watch it. It's called Sex Education, number one.
Hmm.
Uh, and what's her name? Gillian Anderson, the actress, a very well-known actress, played the mother of Otis, who's the young man, and she was like a sex counselor. She's a
Her name
therapist.
was Jean in the
Right, right, right.
game.
And
Hmm.
so her son's name was Otis. And what happened was that Otis, he, even as though he was a virgin, he was giving sex advice to all of his student friends. And
Yeah.
he was giving very, very excellent, wise advice because he'd heard a lot of it from his mother and so forth and so on.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I think what this is a show that would be for lots of people in this country, if they watched it, they'd be horrified,
Yeah.
horrified,
Yeah.
because it was so out there. It was so open. It was so like, okay, whatever floats your boat is fine.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, I mean, there were a couple of scenes like where the guy wasn't getting a blowjob. He was getting a rim job. Okay. And he couldn't believe it. It was the first time. I mean, he was in shock. He loved it, but he was in shock. I mean, so now people, you have all these right wing loonies, okay, who are talking about, oh, we got to ban books because they're too sexy. I mean, I'm thinking, are you kidding me?
Hmm.
One of the things I've always said about this country is, and partly it's be, it's not even this country, but Christianity, modern Christianity, has killed sex and made it something very, very natural and normal and perverted it. Okay. And this is a problem. One of the things I liked about this show is that, hey, look, sex was like falling off a log. I mean, the issue for it was, well, what's the nature of this relationship? What do I really want sexually? What do I really want? I mean, I don't have to have sex if I don't want it. I won't do it. I won't do it until uh, I feel it's right for me, or I need it, or I'm ready for it. I mean, there's all, you name the gamut of possibilities. It's all out there. Now, as someone who has dealt with adolescence my whole career, I was well aware of those kinds of conversations and those kinds of conflicts.
Hmm.
I'll never forget. In fact, I'll give you a perfect case. I'm sitting in was a study hall, or I guess it was a class of mine. And I remember they had a very attractive, light-skinned black girl.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden she blurts out, I think she just blurted it out to me that she was, quote, bi-curious.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, I love that. I love the fact that, first of all, I love the fact that she felt free to tell me
Yeah.
and to maybe discuss it. I thought it was also, hey, look, yeah, that's normal if you're to be bi-curious. Uh, and some people, one of them, I kind of felt that, I always used to talk about flaming homosexuals. They were very
Mhm.
effeminate, uh, like the British character Quentin Crispy. It's well way before your time, but anyway. Um, I said, hey, I'm a flaming heterosexual. I knew from in other podcasts I've said hey, I knew from an early age
Mhm.
I liked girls, not guys.
Yeah.
Okay. I just felt funny and tingly all around when I was close to girls. I didn't feel that when I was close to guys. So it was just not that it wasn't an issue for me.
Yeah.
Now, however, when in the show Sex Education, I mean, there was a lot of there's one character whose father was very strict with him. I forget his name. Anyway, he was a big tall guy, and he was saying, "Hey, I might be homosexual." And so,
Oh, that character was
yeah, what's his name? And then
that was Adam Groff.
that's it, Adam Gruff. See,
Mhm.
because I haven't watched it in a while.
Yeah.
And
Well, I wrote down all the notes. I asked so here's the thing. I asked ChatGPT, I'm like, give me the guidelines of everything they talked about and give me all the characters.
so yeah, great. So well, this would you? I mean, here. So then you ask me some questions. And give me some insights. What did you think? I mean, something in particular that you thought you'd want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, like some of the guidelines that I wrote down was like sexual health, sexual identity, relationships, body image,
Right.
mental health, sexual assault. Those were all the gamuts of like the main
Uh-huh.
topics.
Well, hey, let's do this. Let's stop on one right now. The thing about body image.
Mhm.
Now, that's another thing. It wasn't like, unlike a lot of other shows with teenagers, especially in America,
Mhm.
they're always like, good looking young girls and good looking young guys. And well, no, that
Mhm.
was in sex ed. I mean, sex education. They had some, big. I think in porn they call them BBWs, big beautiful women. They had of all colors.
Mhm.
They were heavy.
Yeah.
They were not svelte. They were sexy, and
Mhm.
they were open about it.
Yeah.
And
Do
there
you
was
know where they filmed it?
well, I think they did film it in England. I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure. I'm
Okay.
not I'm not totally positive, but I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure it was supposed to be in an English high school. Okay.
Okay.
And and that's another thing about people say, oh, the British, they're really rigid and they're really sexually. That's not true. There were in England. I remember even back I was there my first time in 1970 something. I was there. I was studying for my master's, and I was going to the National Library and the British Museum and so like that. So, but they were so much more open about sexuality. Okay,
Mhm.
and certainly their commercials, their TV. It was not uncommon to see bare-breasted women and things like that,
Mhm.
and much more open about sex over there
Yeah.
than here.
Why do you
Now,
think it's so close-minded here in America?
I'll just say here was the difference, though.
Mhm.
Again, when people came over to this country, some of the early colonists, they were all these like kind of radical Christian groups, really,
Mhm.
and and then of course you had the Puritans. Okay, now the Puritans were and Puritanism in England was a passing trend. I
Mhm.
think it lasted there. I'm going to say, I don't know. I'm going to say a generation, 30 years, let's say. But then they got over that nonsense. Okay.
Mhm.
But here it was part of the foundation of our culture. And so they really made sex in the United States, kind of again, a very, very rigid, distorted kind of a thing. So, and I found like now, even in my culture, I'm an Italian American, really. But I remember my family and all the Italian relatives who were born in Italy, they
Mhm.
were very open about sexuality
Oh,
and body.
really?
Yeah, oh sure, and very open about body functions,
Oh, well, that's like
And it,
opposite of Asian culture. They don't talk about any of that. So taboo, like it doesn't
really,
exist. Yeah.
no kidding.
Yeah, it does not exist. You do not talk about it.
Well, I'm gonna see, but and by the way, but well, okay, I was thinking of India, but anyway, but uh I'll give you a perfect example. Most of the Italians' view about food has
Hmm.
to do with bodily functions.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. They talk about a digestivo. Okay,
Mm.
digestivo for your digestion. Yeah.
Digestive.
So what does that mean? It means, hey, you eat certain things so that you can be regular
Yeah.
with your
Like
bodily
bitters and stuff
function.
like that.
Yeah. So for example, certain drinks like after dinner drinks are like digestivos, and
Yeah.
they'll help you digest your food.
Yeah.
For like with Italians, uh they would eat their I'm trying to think now. Now it's I'm getting they would eat their salad at the end of
Mm, yeah.
how did it be like, so you go to a French restaurant,
Yeah. Yeah.
they'll have a salad right up front. The Italians would have it afterwards. Okay.
Hmm,
To
interesting.
basically flush their system out, everything else,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
So so I'm talking about, let's say, in fact, one of my favorite stories, I was reading a book about education in Italy. And so in elementary schools, they'll drop the kids off, and there'll be when they pick them up, there'll be a big board, big bulletin board, and what it'll have on it is what the kids ate for lunch,
Oh.
okay, and then the uh the basic the type of bowel movements they made.
Mm, mhm,
And of course, if you saw something like abbondanza or abbondante, man,
mhm.
it was big
Yeah.
and good,
Yeah.
and it was like it wasn't diarrhea.
Yeah.
It was a good bowel movement.
Yeah.
Okay. And I said that to people from the United States, they're like horrified. I mean, really?
Mhm.
Who's looking at my kids? Who's looking at the bowl at my kids' bowel movements? What the hell is that about?
Yeah.
But as far as they're concerned, it's really a matter of good health.
It's
Okay.
very important. Yeah, like I have these conversations with my kids, but my parents didn't have any of these conversations with me.
Oh,
Like,
hey, look, I got
yeah.
news for you. My
Mhm.
wife, who's an RN, again, an Italian American girl, uh, she would with her, she got married young and had kids, and whenever her kids were not feeling well, oh, I don't feel well, I want to go to school, and her first comment would, "Did you have a bowel movement?"
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
and my parents did the same thing. Did
Yeah.
you have a bowel movement?
Yeah, none of that was talked about. I do that as a parent now, but like my parents never did any of that.
And here's what that relates to in terms of a show like sex education.
Mhm.
What it relates to is the fact that bodily functions. Okay, we're talking here about eliminatory functions,
Mhm.
but the sexual functions are just as important.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, for example, the notion that we would ask our children to remain virgins until they got married at the age of, let's say, 25 is totally ridiculous. It's perverted. It's unnatural. It's a disgrace. And when you got the religious fanatics saying, "Oh no," and you have to be virgins, and and they take all this God crap, and they just they create guilt in these young people. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
I knew adults that were so guilt ridden because the church made them feel that way about
Mhm.
sex.
Mhm.
It was like it, it was crazy. Now
Mhm.
my wife will tell you that, and she was working at a she was a nurse administrator at uh, at a psychiatric hospital for 20 years.
Mhm.
And a lot of the people who were there for no other reason that their families had gotten them years ago. They could get them, put into an institution. Husbands
Yeah.
could get their wives into an institution. They
Wow.
were there because they were homosexual.
Oh
Okay?
no.
That was all. In other words,
Yeah.
they weren't crazy,
Yeah.
weren't schizophrenic, no, they were just homosexual, and it was considered to be unnatural and therefore insane.
Mhm.
Okay? And they were perfectly wonderfully intelligent in many cases, okay, but they were there, and finally, of course, they were getting out because people said, okay, yeah, this is not unnatural, and
Yeah.
it's no longer a crime. Also, they criminalized it. Okay.
Yeah, that which
And-
so this like goes into the next topic of
yeah.
like
So
mental
so
health.
here you so here you have a high school in England where it's full speed ahead on things involving sex. Okay. And I just thought it was one of the most fascinating shows ever, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So this is funny because I contacted you to do the podcast today because I have a neighbor who I've been like talking to and hanging out with, and I've been
Uh,
helping. So she's older. So
right.
I put it on, and I put on your podcast from the first one that we had
Uh-huh.
conversations.
Right.
Let it rip. And she's like listening to it. And then we had talked about religion, and I told her that you're atheist, you're an English teacher, and
Uh,
one of my favorite people. And so she's listening to it. And all of a sudden, I think you had mentioned like masturbation. And she's
right.
like, oh my God, did he just say that? I'm like, yeah, this is my teacher. He says everything and there's no hold bars, So
Right.
she's like, oh my God. She was just like shocked that you had said masturbation.
Well, this is it. I mean, this is part of the problem that people
Yeah.
would be shocked. Okay.
Yeah, but I thought it was just so funny. So then I was like, oh my God, I gotta get SCHIAVO on. We have to talk about sex education just because the whole
Yeah.
conversation
Now,
reminded me.
now, for
But
example,
she really liked your podcast and she really liked what you were saying and
uh,
was really interested of like what type of person you are and what you were saying as
right.
an
Well,
atheist.
that's another taboo. The other taboo is to say, like to say that you're an atheist. It's like, oh no, I mean, this whole country is like, oh, you're expected to believe in
Mhm.
God, you're expected to believe in Jesus Christ. And I'm going,
Yeah, yeah,
hey, nice try, folks, but
yeah.
that's what floats you by. Look, I grew up, with religious instruction my whole life. Little Italian Catholic kid, baptized, confirmation,
Mhm.
2 years of parochial school, third and fourth grade. Then I went to a Catholic university, and of course the problem for a lot of people who are religious is I've read what they read. I read the Bible. I had to read it from cover to cover in one of my theology courses. Um, and also I read all the saints, Saint Augustine, Saint Thomas Aquinas, Saint Paul, even people that weren't almost became saints like Origen.
Mhm.
Origen would have been he's one of my favorites because he cheated. He was supposed to be celibate, right?
Mhm.
And so what he did was he castrated himself.
Oh,
And the church father said, well, wait, you cheat. That was cheating. You can't do that. In other
yeah,
words, they
yeah.
wouldn't. He ultimately didn't get canonized for sainthood because no,
Oh, because he castrated himself.
exactly right. And talk about fanaticism, okay,
Hmm.
in a bizarre belief. And by the way, celibacy with the priesthood is what is known as an ecclesiastical law. Okay, ecclesiastical law means that the priesthood could decide to change that law if they wanted to.
Really?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Same
So,
thing. Same thing
so
with women about women not being priests. They could have women priests
yeah.
if the priesthood said, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I guess the Pope would have to probably approve it. But just the point
Mhm.
of it all is, this is not something that was in the Bible that said women couldn't be priests. You know what I mean?
Oh, so they can change it if they want to.
Yeah, yeah, of course. That's it.
Mhm.
That's what
Mhm.
it's
But
what that is.
also man interpreted the Bible, right?
Man, look, here's the argument. Let's go even further back. There's no question that human beings created God or gods, right?
Mhm.
That's all out of ignorance and fear. Why? There were things about nature, wow, thunder, lightning. Oh, that must
Yeah,
be Zeus. That must be Zeus. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Earthquakes, the Greeks thought, oh, that's the god Poseidon, the god of the sea. But those waves, when the waves pound, the earth shakes, and they thought, oh, that's
yeah,
earthquakes.
yeah.
So as we've gotten more and more knowledgeable about how nature works and our science has gotten better and better,
Hmm.
it's like, okay, a lot of that stuff is nonsense.
Hmm.
Okay, we don't believe that Zeus is sending thunderbolts anymore. We don't believe that you know uh, Poseidon is sending big gigantic waves, and that's how we get
Hmm.
earthquakes.
Hmm.
It's not how it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So as a consequence, more and more people are leaving that religious belief behind. Also, a lot of young people today are leaving the churches for other reasons because they're starting to realize, wait a second, some of these idiot pastors, then they're mouthing nonsense. Okay, they're mouthing nonsense about sex. They're also, look at how many of these idiot pastors decided that Trump was a gift from God. That all of a sudden they should be supporting him. And the guy is a lying, cheating, thieving weasel, a sexual predator, okay, a serial adulterer who cheated on all 3 of his wives. He's as nutty as a Christmas fruitcake. He's clinically mentally ill, and people are going along with him as if he's normal. I mean, that's ridiculous, okay? And he's much more becoming much more outwardly, concretely fascist, right? And a lot of these pastors and a lot of these crazy churches are they're behind them. And so young people with half a brain are going, why would I listen to this pastor? Why would I go into this church? That's the guy's an idiot. The guy's a nincompoop. And this is not Christianity the way, if you read the New Testament. I mean, look, I may be an atheist, but most holy books have something to recommend them, whether it's the Upanishads of India or the Bhagavad Gita of India, or whether it's the Tibetan Book of the Dead or the Bible. I mean, look, the New Testament, Christ's message was fine. Yeah, the golden rule, love your neighbor as yourself, blah blah blah. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. Yeah, that's great. It's all about love, okay? And meanwhile, they've so distorted Christianity that they have people hating other people, okay? And they're supposed to be following the path of Christ. Well, they're not. Stop. Give me a break. Why would I go to that church? I remember as a kid being told I couldn't go to a friend's bar mitzvah, or I couldn't go to my parents couldn't go to the wedding of non-Catholic people.
Really?
Yeah, they were nuts in those days. They were nuts. Yeah, they had to ease up after a while because they were losing so many congregants that they well, that's a little over the top.
Yeah.
And what's interesting in sex education, Eric, the black kid, he talking about religion, his problem is he's kind of religious. He does believe in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
What I liked about that whole thing is he's saying, well, look, I guess he was supposed to get baptized. Actually, he was supposed to get baptized.
Yeah.
And they got, as in the Protestant things, they don't get baptized the babies, they baptize people when they're older, which just makes sense. In other words, choose to be religious or choose to be this, you choose to be an Episcopalian or a Methodist or whatever. So he was resisting getting baptized. Why? Because the pastor in the church was making him feel unwanted and alien because he's homosexual, you see? And I think, as I recall the end of it, he finally makes a decision. He tells Otis, hey, look, he said, I want to become a pastor. I want to change the church's view of people who are homosexual. Okay. Which is exactly how you do it. You basically subvert the organization from within.
Like you did.
Well, you know what? You are so smart, because I was just going to say that. That's exactly what I did. One of the books, I read 2 books that were formative.
Yeah.
As a teacher, when I was planning on becoming a teacher. One was called Summerhill, and the subtitle was A Radical Approach to Child Rearing by a British teacher named A.S. Neal. Okay, that was one. And it was really radical. In fact, it talks about letting kids masturbate. It was
so
you
read this book right before you were going to be a teacher?
Yes. And then the other book I read when I was taking courses in education, was a book called Teaching as a Subversive Activity. Yeah. And in fact, I know a friend of mine also read the same book. A number of us who teach the way we teach now, we taught, read those 2 books. Okay. So here's what A.S. Neal talked about first. He said, first of all, when you're going to educate kids, you educate them out of love, not hatred, not fear, not discipline. Okay. And he was saying you need to allow young people to be who they want and need to be.
Yeah.
Okay. And that included masturbation.
Yeah.
And all they would say was, hey, you can do that as long as you do it, discreetly
in private. Yeah.
In private, that's fine. Okay.
That's exactly what you said in that podcast, where you're like, listen, as long as you do it in private.
Yeah. I mean, look, in fact, every time I try to write a book, I always say the same thing to myself. Writing a book, as you well know, okay, since you've been doing it, is a very solitary, arduous experience.
Very.
Okay. It's almost like it's like masturbation, except masturbation is a lot more fun
It's
and has a
masturbation for your brain.
yeah, has a much masturbation is a lot more fun, has a better payoff. Okay.
No, I was drained after I was doing my book.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I mean, so it's another solitary pursuit. Okay. It's a
Mm-hmm.
solitary pursuit, masturbation. It's a solitary pursuit to be writing a book. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've always felt that I was having more fun masturbating than I was trying to write a book.
Yeah.
I admit that. I mean, I give people credit who write books, but maybe they weren't they weren't masturbating as much as I was. That's too bad for them, you know?
Could be it. That could be.
Yeah. So I mean, when I say stuff like that,
Mhm.
students understood. I wasn't going to criticize them for being sexual.
Yeah,
They're
and you
supposed
weren't
to
saying anything that the kids were not doing themselves anyway.
exactly when their
They
parents
just had no one that would actually blatantly say it in class.
and also say and say
And it's
it's
okay.
natural, it's
It's okay.
normal. Your bodies, you heard me say that how many times in this podcast that babies masturbate from the time they're born. They're in the crib. They're sexual beings. They're
Yeah.
supposed to be. How do you think the race gets reproduces? How do you think the race keeps going?
Then
Okay,
why does religion tell like priests not to have sex and not to get married?
has a lot to do with control. First of all, they tell other people not that it's control. They
Mhm.
have this the bullshit thing about celibacy. Again, I guess it's supposed to be partly self-discipline.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, they have all kinds of wacky ideas about celibacy. And I would not going to say to you, I know all of the rationales. Okay,
Mhm.
it's just unfortunate and bizarre. And by the way, um, I'm not one of those people who said that the reason why priests molest young boys is because they're celibate. Uh, Ministers who are not celibate, molest young boys. Lots of men molest young boys. It has nothing to do with celibacy per se. It has to do with whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was also a question Jerry had of like people who molest younger children, like what is wrong with them? Is it mental? Is it chemical? Is it like what? She was wondering. So
That's a that's a tough one, I
that,
think. I remember having to say no to a young girl. I'll never forget it. One of them. I was working, I was moonlighting. I was teaching, okay. And I must have been in I guess I was on tenure at that point. But I was still moonlighting because we were making no money. I was working at a movie theater. And then what happens would be that same company had a bowling alley.
oh, okay.
So what happened was at the time, I used to work at the drive-in movie. So when
Mhm.
the drive-in movie closed down really for the winter, I wound up going to the bowling alley for a couple of months to work until I went to an indoor movie theater. But I'm there, and I'm basically custodial type. I'm sweeping and mopping, and they had a bar, so I would do certain things for the bar. I'd make certain kinds of concoctions to mix drinks and things. But I remember there was a young girl there who had a humongous crush on me,
Yeah.
and man, she had the body of a goddess. What a knockout body she had, and she also, she looked like she was, you know, like a 18, 17, maybe at least a senior in high
She
school.
wasn't right.
No, I find out
Uh-oh, how old was she?
14 years old,
Oh my God.
and I said to her, I she I was what the hell was I doing? I remember having a conversation with her in my car. She jumped into my car,
Uh-oh.
and I said, "Look," I said, you're gorgeous.
Yeah.
See me in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Let's talk to me when you're 18, 19." I said, "First of all, you're way too young.
Yeah.
I would lose my job. I would go to jail. And you have to understand, it's not that you're in it." And I used to say this to a lot of young girls. Hey, you're crazy attractive. I think you're gorgeous, but you know what?
Mhm.
And it was tough. I mean, look, as
And
a man,
how old were you at this time? Like
well, I was, oh, definitely.
20,
Oh God, I
24,
was at least 24 at the time.
24. Okay.
At least that, yeah, because I think I was already on
Oh,
10.
you're still a baby when you were teaching.
Oh, no, I started when I was 21, 22, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's why I mean, my students who were my seniors, my first, they were only 4 years younger than I was.
yeah.